Welcome to another episode of Faith Focus, where we explore the intersection of faith, science, and reason. And today we're diving into a topic that's often treated as untouchable, the theory of evolution. For over a century, Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection has been the dominant explanation for the diversity of life on Earth. But is it the only explanation? And more importantly, does it hold up to the scrutiny of modern science? While the mainstream narrative often suggests that all credible scientists support Darwin's theory without question, the reality is far more complex. In fact, there's a growing number of reputable, highly credentialed scientists who are challenging the key aspects of the theory of evolution. They're pointing out gaps, questioning assumptions, and presenting evidence that suggests that life is far more intricate and intelligently designed than Darwin ever imagined. Let's dive in and explore their arguments. Let's start with the biggest question that Darwin's theory has yet to answer: the origin of life itself. Evolution, in its simplest form, explains how life changes over time, but it doesn't address how life began. And that's where modern scientists like Dr. James Tour come into play. Dr. James Tour is a world-renowned synthetic organic chemist at Rice University and a leading expert in nanotechnology. He has spent decades studying the molecular machines inside cells. Tour argues that the sheer complexity of even the simplest life forms makes it improbable, if not impossible, that life could have arisen spontaneously through random chemical processes. He's been outspoken about the scientific community's failure to adequately explain how life could emerge from non-life. He famously said, "We have no idea how the molecules that compose living systems could have been devised, how complex systems like proteins and nucleic acids could have emerged without some form of guiding intelligence." Tour has challenged scientists to provide a plausible explanation for the origin of life based on naturalistic processes, but so far, none have met his challenge. He points out that the complexity of the cell's molecular machinery, even at the level of a single protein, far exceeds anything we can currently explain through random chemical processes, and he's not alone. Dr. Stephen Meyer, a philosopher of science and director of the Discovery Institute's Center for Science and Culture, also challenges Darwinian explanations for life's origins. Meyer's argument revolves around informed theory. He suggests that the DNA molecule, which stores the genetic code, contains a vast amount of digital information that is analogous to a computer program or a written text. Meyer argues that the presence of such information is best explained by an intelligent source, rather than by unguided natural processes. Another significant challenge to Darwin's theory comes from the concept of irreducible complexity, a term coined by biochemist Dr. Michael Behe of Lehigh University. Behe argues that certain biological systems are too complex to have evolved incrementally through small, gradual mutations, as Darwin proposed. One of Behe's most famous examples is the bacterial flagellum, a microscopic outboard motor that bacteria use for movement. The flagellum is made up of multiple protein parts that work together in a way that if any one part is missing, the entire structure fails to function. Behe argues that such a system could not have evolved through gradual mutations because the intermediate stages would have no functional advantage. In other words, natural selection couldn't select for something that wasn't already functioning. Behe's arguments extend beyond the flagellum to other biological systems, such as blood clotting mechanisms and the immune system, which also exhibit this irreducible complexity. According to Behe, these systems defy Darwinian explanations, suggesting that they were designed to be functional from the start. Now let's talk about the fossil record, another area where Darwin's theory has run into significant challenges. The traditional view suggests that species evolved gradually over millions of years, and we should see a steady, continuous sequence of transitional forms in the fossil record, but that's not what we find. Dr. Gunter Beckley, a paleontologist and former curator at the State Museum of Natural History in Stuttgart, Germany, has raised significant questions about the gaps in the fossil record. Beckley points to the events like the Cambrian explosion, a period around 540 million years ago, when the vast number of complex life forms suddenly appeared without any clear evolutionary precursors. He argues that this sudden appearance of diverse life forms challenges the gradualist model that Darwin proposed and suggests that an intelligent cause may be a better explanation. Beckley's arguments are bolstered by his own research and his critique of Darwinian explanations for the so-called transitional forms that are often cited as evidence of gradual evolution. Beckley notes that many of these transitional forms are either ambiguous or missing altogether, and that their absence raises serious questions about the validity of Darwin's theory. And now let's turn to genetics, a field that has dramatically advanced since Darwin's time and provided new insights that challenge traditional evolutional theory. Dr. John Sanford, a geneticist and former professor at Cornell, presents a compelling argument in his book Genetic Entropy. Sanford argues that the accumulation of harmful mutations over time should lead to a decline in fitness, not an improvement or upward evolution as Darwin suggested. Sanford's research shows that most mutations are either neutral or harmful, with very few being beneficial. He argues that the net effect of mutations is a gradual erosion of genetic information, rather than the creation of new complex traits. This concept of genetic entropy contradicts the Darwinian idea that natural selection and random mutations are sufficient to explain the complexity and diversity of life on Earth. Furthermore, recent studies on genetic codes have revealed an astonishing level of optimization that defies random mutation. It's almost as if the code was designed with a purpose in mind, rather than being the product of chance and necessity. Sanford, like Mayer, sees this as evidence for intelligent design, not random mutation. Mainstream media and educational institutions often promote the idea that all reputable scientists support Darwinian evolution. The truth is that skepticism is growing. Over 1,000 scientists have signed a document called A Scientific Dissent from Darwinism, which states, "We are skeptical of claims for the ability of random mutation and natural selection to account for the complexity of life." These scientists have come from various disciplines, biology, chemistry, physics, and more, and they represent a diverse range of perspectives. They're not saying that evolution doesn't happen at all. They're saying that the current neo-Darwinian model is inadequate to explain the full picture. And many of them, like Dr. Tour, Dr. Mayer, Dr. Behe, Dr. Beckley, Dr. Sanford, are calling for a more open and honest discussion about the evidence, one that isn't constrained by ideological commitments to atheism or secularism. So where does this leave us? It leaves us at a crossroads, a point where we must recognize that the debate about evolution is far from settled and that legitimate, scientifically grounded challenges exist. It's time to move beyond the dogma and outdated science and consider the new evidence with an open mind. Evidence that increasingly suggests life is not an accident, but the product of design. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for the scientific community to let go of its commitment to materialism and consider that there could be a creator behind it all. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Faith Focus. If this discussion challenged your thinking or opened your eyes to new perspectives, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Let's keep the conversation going and keep asking questions and keep searching for the truth. Until next time, stay curious and stay faithful. May God bless you.